And hey everybody, we're gonna finish off Cold Steel 4 here. When I do that final bonus scene that the
after everything that happened,
that the game has.
Over half a year.
Right? No, we've...
With the end of the Great Supreme Command. Meanwhile, this was, however, amid the issue many. I can only assume it was because Calvert didn't want to take any chances.
I've thought
people of Erebon on the other
about that.
President, however, as the Imperial, but the governor Rufus so and on the governor at the heart, while foreign with the class rumor the crown. Just when as a result. Meanwhile, some are the issue, though Chen Major not only that said. The bracer high accord.
Come on, give me that additional scene game. Blah,
meanwhile,
blah, blah.
after act each of but now.
Let's go a little faster.
Welcome back, Milliam.
Can I... Ooh. Okay. What's this? He's got that 50-cent piece. Didn't notice that the first time. From Crow. Yeah, Laura.
Ah, I understand now.
There we go. Ooh, yes, and our Orbital's secret meeting. Phase space for Miss Anguis, celestial globe.
However, it seems the situation is slightly beyond the scope of our expectations. The seventh Anguis has been lost to us, while the second continues her leave of absence. Though perhaps the biggest surprise is that neither the Stallritter nor McBurn have returned.
Well, old McBurn's finally gone out on a journey of self-discovery. Little too late if you ask me, though. As for the Stallritter, it seems like they've decided to branch off on their own.
That's hardly a cause for concern. The second Anguis is a careful, calculating woman. She's sure to cooperate with the next plan. When she does return, I'm certain McBurn and the Stallritter will follow.
So this goes back to kind of what I've talked about before. If we got the full rundown of what was happening, odds are we'd probably team up with Ouroboros too. But because of the unique... I have a feeling that because of the unique set of factors, much like the Shmelga deal, they can't just tell us. Or alternatively, even they actually need us to oppose them, so that they can achieve the real goal of actually effective, good change in the world.
And perhaps even Blue Blanc and Luciola too. Though, I think it's safe to say Kruger's never coming back. That makes her the 4th total dropout after Louve, Joshua, and Ren.
He died.
We've gained quite the interesting little pawn in her place, though, wouldn't you say? The magic swelling in his ancient blood is quite something. A promising newcomer if ever we've had one.
I suppose. Though he still knows so little about the world, he might need a babysitter for quite some time.
Regardless,
Aww.
let us leave the enforcers to their own discretion.
Poor Cedric. He's not an impressive character.
And take care that you do not follow the same path as the Faceless.
Who's the first again? I gotta look it up, because I'm very curious, and this is even the end of the game. I can't spoil at this point, I don't think. First Anguis Ouroboros. Unknown. Just a complete unknown. Interesting.
You all seem to hate my predecessor so much. I almost regret not being able to meet him.
Well, you've certainly filled his shoes in terms of personality, at least.
It seems all 3 of you have gathered.
So, you've arrived.
Welcome, O Grand Master.
I'm still not unconvinced this is God, or Adios. With how a lot of these things go.
Maribel, you have done very well.
I mean, come on. Orchestral church music kicked in as she showed up. So, and the whole thing there's a I think there's a decent chance the Grandmaster's Adios.
You oversaw the completion of the Phantasmal Blaze plan and returned safely.
You're too kind. I merely laid the groundwork for the Witch of the Abyss and the Steel Maiden to work their magic. But what of the Septarians of Fire and Earth?
I have confirmed their disappearance from this plane.
Interesting. She's got the, she has a twin snake on her little dress there, rather than a snake eating its own tail. That's a name for that. Twin. The Caduceus, I believe. Yeah, the Caduceus. No wings, though, so it's not quite the same. Not quite the Rod of Asclepius either, which would be another thing. But it's a little symbol. Especially since Orbos has a symbol. Why is there a second snake?
Unlike the Septarian of Mirage, they haven't vanished entirely. But as they are now, it is nearly impossible for them to fall into human hands once more.
Is that so?
I guess we can say things are still going smoothly then.
Indeed. our plan continues apace. Vida searching for a new path, in spite of her continuing faith in me. The heroic death of the proud Leanne Sandlot. McBurn, the former overlord of the Beyond, realizing the truth of his home. And even the departures of Joshua, Ren, and Sharon were all valuable parts of the process.
In short, everything that happens is within your knowledge and by your mercy.
That's the kind of phrasing that one would ascribe to a god.
To be honest, it's simply incredible. Your very existence is akin to Ars Magna.
No, I am but a shadow. I exist solely to announce the appointed time to the world. The other Anguis may not be present, but I shall make this declaration here and now. The world has escaped the Great Twilight, extending its lifespan ever so slightly. 3 years yet remain, until all returns to primordial nothingness. The third stage of the Orpheus final plan, the Eternal Recurrence Plan, begins now.
That sound. Now that's... There's a stinger to drop. That is a solid one. I like it. Oh, yeah. Oh, interesting. Very... Eternal Recurrence. So, you know what that kind of sounds like to me? There's going to be either a time rewind... Or... Yeah. Something to reset the stage of the world, maybe? Well. Fourth game. First game was weird. The Cold Series Steel, I felt it started really strong, but I went in a direction I was not prepared for, in terms of how completely everything was all just a scheme of the antagonists. I don't know on that, like, parts of that ending. Again, I'm like, it seems what I saw, especially in terms of the politics and what got revealed, not a huge fan of. And yeah, without knowing more about kind of what got revealed, I'm left with a lot of questions. Aside from Ash, I liked both Class 7s. They did a better job mellowing Ash out in the fourth game, which he desperately needed. If they'd kept him like that through the third game, I probably would have liked him more. Visuals, great. Fourth game really came through strong on visuals and music. That wedding bit, fantastic. Loved that. It was... The final dungeon really came more so than the others. Like, I still... Third game... Third game, I guess I still felt more like the villains were up to something nefarious, right? So there was tension in fighting our way and the growl and all that sort of stuff. Even though there was a lot of... The third game had its own issues, but... Fourth game. That final dungeon. The really weird part about the final dungeon is how, like, Ishmael's guy was just kind of an evilness that existed. And I still think his whole angle is kind of countered by what they used to kind of prove that he existed. Because if you go back to the third game, and the Emperor talk to Breen about, hey, so what do you think about the people of Erebonia? And he makes his whole speech about the people, yada, 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 yada. And then they go, yeah, but what about all that violence? That doesn't make sense with how you've described everyone. He's like, yeah, that doesn't. Maybe that's because an evil curse, an evil thing, a robot gone amok. But you're like, yeah, but he picked up on our malice, but I've just talked about how we don't have the malice. And it's only him that's making us bad in the first place. Which is kind of shown in the final dungeon, too. There was no malice from anybody toward anyone. I was just kind of doing our things. It's kind of like, what's a good way to describe it? Like you were co-workers, right? At some sort of company event, and they divided you up into competing teams. Yeah, that's not a terrible way to look at it. You know, at the end of the day, you know, you're gonna go back to working your jobs together side by side. But for this little boy, you know, you can pretend, oh yeah, we're gonna show you. Was. I don't know, how would I rate the games? If I had to do the game orders, I would probably go from favorite to least favorite. 1, 2, 4, 3. I think the school setting and the way they started to introduce things, that had a great first game foundation. Excellently done. I think the second game, well, my main issue was the idea of them like, we're going to make Crow graduate. Given all he had done, I thought they were continuing to build on the idea of more mature, serious, perhaps even more realistic, depending on you want to use the term, setting, building on, because, you know, the first game had ideas of class conflict between changing economics and cultural shifts and all that sort of stuff, right? Which is more of a mature, serious take than the first game, Trails in the Sky, which was kind of like, you know, coming of age adventure, typical kind of JRPG adventure mostly, and then twist at the end. This was always kind of, from the get-go, a bit more serious in that regard, which kind of had built, I think, on the Crossspell games. Which again, the politics of independent self-determination for a nation or a city-state, political machinations, that sort of thing. You know, false flag operations that we got to see the damage of, the implementation of military force. So I think the second game of Cold Steel built well on the first game, for the most part, setting up the slow change. Played out the Civil War decently, without, you know, they did their whole the Civil War is bad in the West, which was an acceptable way to try and have both the kind of more lighthearted, but still keep the serious tone. And then, of course, the conclusion. The third game had a great premise too at the start, because it got to build right at the beginning, building only on what had happened in the second game. Right, the idea of finding out what happened in the West, seeing Reen in a teaching capacity. There's some great potential there, I thought. But nothing. They went out of their way to just undo everything that the second game seemed to have set up in that regard. Plus, of course, Crow came back. And you're like, okay, Crow's back and Osborn's back. And now Reen's working for Osborn even after and all this. And it was just... this third game did damage in terms of the storytelling for me. Fourth game had some good moments, but it was crippled by the fact that it had to build off the third game and all the problems that came with it. And all they would have done would have made the third game. Well, here's the catch-22 they found themselves in, right? If they'd made the third game a little more serious, right? If we'd gone to, if they played, the war was really harsh in the West, right? If you'd accepted and played at that angle from the second game, you couldn't have had Crow be okay, right? You couldn't have gone to and now we're going to see ruined villages 1 through 3 with people still trying to put their lives back together, and be like, Crow, welcome aboard, buddy. We completely forgive you. And again, if they'd made all of that actual bad happen, it would have been hard to, be okay with Lecter and Claire and all that sort of stuff. You could have still done the storyline the same way, though, by making that ultimately, despite all the damage caused along the way, this was a necessary part of a plan to stop an even greater evil. But they kind of undid it so that we could still have our character moments without it being weird. And then that killed, for me at least, the threat and tension of a lot of these moments. Which became, quite emblematic and active during the fourth game, too. Ouroboros is attacking us. They're about to unleash their ions. All of these world leaders are here. What's gonna... Oh, no. Osborn calls in and calls it off. No, there was never any danger. Never any threat. I guess... And even Osborn's plan was always... even if he'd won, he would have done what Reen did. Explode himself, because he had the willpower for it. And if his plan failed, Reen was going to do it. Still destroying a Schmelga. Or the really good plan, Reen destroys a Schmelga and everything's happy. It was... Schmelga was... I don't know, there was just the weird conflict there. It was you spent 2-3 games building up Osborn as this antagonist that we want to compete and thwart, and then you're like, oh, I guess we're not really your enemy, Schmelga. I don't know. I'm glad I played the games. Don't get me wrong. I did enjoy them. I will definitely play the later games as they come out. It's just this last... It's just a weird finale to the series. If you go back to the first game, You know, and you finish the first game, you're like, all right, where do you see the game going? I would not have seen anything about the fourth game show up. Because, yeah, like, the politics kind of vanished mostly from it. Yeah. But at least we got some good hot springs, right? So, there's perks. Perks. Alright, well, I'm going to call it there. I might do another video just because I might have more thoughts that come to me. But I suppose this brings our journey to the end. So, to all of you who have watched all the way through, kudos. I'm very impressed. It's a long game. I'm glad you were able to watch it with me. Thank you everyone who commented or subscribed or liked everything like that. I do appreciate it. It's been a fun journey. And again, I know there's new stuff coming out. I'll play it when it comes out. Don't spoil me. But feel free to share your thoughts, your comments, what you thought about this game, what you thought was great. Right? Share the great moments, the things you think that was S tier. Feel free to share, of course, as well, what you think that was a part that you thought was terrible or was boring or whatever. Let's get this dialogue going. I would love to kind of sit down and some discussions, kind of break down this game with people. And not just this game, but like the whole 4-game series. So with that, we're going to call it. Everyone have a great night, and I'll see you for the next game. Whenever that may come. Bye.